All right, folks, doing the audio. We'll be there momentarily. All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Foxtrotting in the Foxhole, Season 11, Episode 5. Number 325 overall. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan, coming to you from Eagle's Nest 2, Studio B, on a saucy Saturday night. Heck yeah. As always, like and subscribe to FTINFX Media's YouTube channel. We could use the help as far as that goes. We've been getting a lot more folks tuning in, I should say. Let's not fumble on our words this early. We think the usual suspects as far as creating and producing and allowing us to consume wonderful technology, from the Sonys to the Rhodes, Potenzics, and all the light makers and cables and all that stuff. Always want to be on the podcast. This one, Aftershocks, The Scene, or SJ Gets Down, which I co host on. Drop me a line, FTINFX at gmail.com, 541 525 0896. All right. Enough of all the chat. A lot going on this Saturday. Is over here. I'm kind of keeping an eye on MLS 360, a big day with some Titanic matchups with some interesting results, but we'll get to that in the beautiful game life. Meanwhile, let's get ourselves rocking with a little open face. Episode 325, coming right at you. Well, good grief, we have to start off with a somber one from popular culture. Boy, too many folks as far as that show goes. It's amazing what can happen if I think the show ended in '09. A Vincent Pastore, better known to most of us as Big Pussy Bompin' Sarah. Tony's crony who went on the lam, and then he ended up swimming with the fishes once they figured out he was singing to the feds. If you've watched Sopranos, you know. Anyhow, he crossed the Rainbow Bridge apparently earlier today. Very sad. Always kind of a tragic character as far as how it played out, but definitely an interesting component to David Chase's story. Told us to go out to his family and everybody in the Soprano cult. The major loss there. Lost way too many folks. Whew, man. Okay. Tony Como, placed on indefinite leave by CBS Sports. What does that mean? Well, if we're taking a sampling of folks who worked in the business, it basically sounds like they are auditioning his replacement. Yeah, it's going to be like that. I agree with the people who said that had the video not come out as far as the body cam footage or whatever it is, dash cam, I don't know, part of the scenery. He probably wouldn't be in this position. And who knows? CBS just may make him sweat it out. But I'm pretty sure they are scrambling, elevating somebody and trying to figure out who they can bring in. And who knows? maybe this is an interesting moment in time where someone who's been recently hired gets elevated somehow. I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, Tony Como. What have I been saying? Ride service, Uber, hire a driver, make him sign an NDI or NDA. I mean, jeez, it's not rocket science. When you got a gig like that, why are you putting yourself at risk? That's all I say. And I've been saying this for many, 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 many friggin' moons. You know, make it make sense. You know, I gotta circle back to this whole thing with Kyle Shanahan. I talked about it in Aftershocks. Thank you, all the new viewers who've tuned in this week. Hope you will be tuning into this. But this whole thing with Kyle Shanahan, I know the conspiracy theorists, you know, the whole power plant theory with the injuries, and this is just one more hex that somebody like Kaepernick has put on them or something like that. Forget all that hogwash. I'm just curious about the cover up. And the 49ers basically told Shefty when he can release it. Apparently, it was announced, and Shefty, like, was already 2 seconds later, already had it all written out, and ESPN had the green light to send it. This CIA level of secrecy, which something just doesn't smell right here. And I know with the internet sleuths, we tend to jump to conclusions. But when certain things like this go down and it's murky, probably 90% of the right, the sleuths, and those of us who have our suspicions tend to be correct. I don't know, man. You tell me. The whole thing is just crazy. It's just something you really have to wonder about. And I mean really wonder about when it comes to this thing with Kyle Shanahan. You know, kudos to the 49ers. Teams can really learn as far as when people do that boo-boo, nanny boo-boo kind of stuff. It gets you in trouble out of cover it up and not leak out. Because apparently, I'm sure given the folks that work at the Chronicle and SF Gate, they've broken some major stories over the last 40 or 50 years. If there's something weird, they will get to the bottom of it. Yeah, I guess it's finally because there's other things that are going on in the hustlers, baiters, right? In terms of that association. So the Ryan Clark thing, it played a few cycles, but it's still, I'd be remiss if I didn't go back to some of the comments that have, was gonna say, trickled down since since Aftershocks, which I did a couple of days ago. I mean, the whole thing. Not so much about Craig. I've already beat that with a dead horse. But the idea that he was fired for being black and keeping it too real. No, we like real. Everybody does. But nobody likes the victimization thing. And then you get, world class hustler and baiters, Jamel Hill and Kerry Champion saying that these two, Cam Newton and Ryan Clark, getting fired. It's a better call for having a black sports network where we can take care of our people, because she's always taking care of her people. I love the BCP guy, and Maurice Keep Division is just like saying, you got all this racial victimization, but you're out there masquerading in a blonde hair that just does not work for you. But well, other people have gone there. I just had to say because it just makes me chuckle a little bit. But yeah, it just on and on, and I get it. There's a certain amount of engagement that you get, and on that level where you actually are a brand, always pushing that narrative, and giving someone like Willie D pushing that kind of nonsense can have 1 million followers. Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot we could do but just be cynical on our own platform. Maybe you don't have that skill, but at least we have the space to do it and call it for what it is. And it's just real tiring. And when we speak of fatigue, this is truly it. Gotta love that there are people that push back, and I've mentioned the Asante Samuels and Shady McCoy, of course. If you follow my platforms, you know I have never been a fan of his. He actually scored some points, and I actually like him. And he came out and basically said, "Hey, I got zero sympathy for the guy. And this is what he does." And broke out the story of somebody telling him when then there was a lockout how he had, "Hey, someone filmed me walking into the building," just a true content before everything guy. So yeah, there was a lot of folks out there who were shedding tears. None coming from the Foxhole. There you go. Cam, he's taking it in stride. He's got his platform. He's got his money, and even though I'm not into his stick, a lot of people are. So he's gonna do well, especially since we are going more towards a web content as far as folks, in their sports entertainment these days. It's kind of funny that ESPN isn't wasting any time. I don't know if this is true, but with the Hall of Fame game right around the corner, we'll know soon enough. I guess Steve Smith, that Steve Smith, a lot of Steve Smiths, but you know what Steve Smith I'm talking about. That guy. He is tabbed to replace RC, as in Brian Clark. That ought to be interesting, because talk about somebody who keeps it real without being a victim. A lot of stuff to talk about betting this week. And we'll get into the whole thing with Paige and Angel when I get to the NBA beat, but I don't know how much truth there is into this. The whole thing with McAfee, he sort of won a bet because he got inside information from Shams as far as where LeBron was going to land. Come on, man. I'm sure it's all joking, because I think if it was anything more serious, he'd be getting taken to the task like the WNBA girls were for their little joke. Now, a lot of interesting stuff happened this week, right? Did you have on your 2026 scorecard Fauci getting called to speak about COVID because they brought his diaries and other things, and he pulls a total Mark Furman? Yeah, that would make sense. Then we find out that one of our favorites, obviously, was Snuffy Cunningham, kicking up all kinds of dust, tumbleweeds. Perfect time for Megan Rapinoe. Yes, that's right, our favorite Megan R. She's going to launch her own platform. Well, of course you are. What else are you going to do? We all know why Sue Bird was Audi 5000. Yeah, perfect place for the Inseparables to sit there and bitch, moan, and complain. But since everybody has a platform, you go, lady. Speaking of, for sure, one of her buddies, this will make all the haters on the planet giggle, and I'm sure you have been in a couple of days. I think this dropped, maybe a day or two ago, about BG, Brittany Griner, and her wife splitting up. The wife that stood by her side and pleaded with the president to get her out of Russia because she was too dumb to not have any vapes in her luggage going through security on her way back to the States. Everybody picks on BG for reasons. We're not going there. We're kind of rising above these gender wars and some of the toxic commentary from the peanut galleries that's attached to that. I just think it's rather amusing. But hey, she's back on the market, and we talked about Babylon at the All-Star game last week. Kind of interesting, the timing of it all. It's like, hey, I need to get back out here and get where the party is, where the rump shaker is. And lastly, another one you wouldn't have on your 2026 scorecard. Donna Mills, remember from Knots Landing, if you are long in the tooth like I am? Hey, I gotta make that scratch somehow. She, in 85, she just opened her OnlyFans account. Such a 2026 thing. All right, folks, we're scratching the surface here. We'll be back with a little more mayhem on the other side. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chillin' like Kavicha Karvashgalia on a wonderful Saturday evening. Looking over here, a lot of interesting stuff as far as MLS 360 as the late window games are wrapping up. Interesting things to talk about there. We'll get to that point, but in the meantime, yeah, it's a little bit late, but maybe we'll just tell the homies and homettes, get out of the bars. There's an Uber waiting for you so we can get to the Eugene airport and take, we got to do our little dance through TSA, high fiving and fist bumping all along the way till we get to our tarmac, where we get to take the twilight flight in our Gulfstream G650, where we're going to get to our cruising altitude of 43,000 feet, where we're going to take the high view above the campuses of America. Well, what is happening in the high skies over the campuses of America? As we get closer to another school year and another football season, our quest to get to a new normal, once again, has been, we'll say, sidetracked or a monkey wrench thrown into the path of normalcy. Because once again, a whack-ball judge has intervened and says the NCAA's 5-on-5 rule, I want an injunction. Now, maybe they can bounce the ball again to an appellate court. This can go on and on. Moral of the story, because the Big Ten and the SEC this week came out and said, oh yeah, okay, now we could roll with the CSB. So you waited till basically August to get on board with this, where you all could have been pushing and pushing to get that damn thing passed before Congress recessed, because when they come back, it is all about the midterms, given how crazy things are right now, as they always will be in an election cycle, but this one in particular, with a lame duck president and everybody eyeing what's going to happen in 2028. Who knows when the CSB can get passed, when they can take a few minutes, because it definitely is something that certain people know needs to get on the books to sort of put some of this anarchy where, hey, why not? Because we know there are plenty of predatory lawyers and agents who are coming up with all kinds of cockamamie ways for people to get the bag as long as they can get the bag. And without the CSB and the antitrust protections that will come with it, yeah, who knows what kind of whackball stuff that's going to take more time to unravel as we try to land the plane and get to whatever this thing is going to look like. It's not even going to be the new normal. It's going to be like the new era at this point, right? Because I don't think they'll ever be normal again, given the things that have evolved over the past 6 years. Well, that's my take, anyways. I think I mentioned this on Aftershocks. I did. The whole thing in Carolina with Belichick and Lombardi. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. So, in this same vein that I was talking about with trying to get to the new era, you have something else to think about. Okay, you have, let's see here. Let me see if I get this right. Yeah, Stanford, their football team basically has taken the steps to unionize. There's 100 women's college basketball players who have formed their own thing as far as unionizing. And it's one of these things that where this, if the college sports bill was in place, you could address these things. Without it, and the uncertainty as to when that may actually become the law of the land, grab your popcorn and your seatbelts because this is going to get very interesting. Yeah. The minute I say way back, so I should forget about Pandora's box. Pandora's box. It's more of a Jack in the Box. And we ain't talking about the 2 tacos for 99 cents. We're talking about that Jack in the Box. Okay. I think it's funny, with media days, and you get to see, all the personalities flexing. I talked about Will Stein in Kentucky and SEC, and now the Big Ten had their day. You got the legendary Dan Lanning talking about making history, and we're like the judge and Kenny Shack. Well, we're waiting, but Coach Sig, the current holder of the belt. You want a shot at the title? You got to come with the king. And he's walking around like the king because he basically called out the SEC and told them, quit whining. Quit whining about your schedule. You all aren't what you think you are. The real power's in the Big Ten. And in that Dennis Hopper kind of voice, I say, is he lying? So cool for Coach Sig coming back to the table with a chip on his shoulder, ready to defend his crown. We're getting closer, y'all. Okay, this is another interesting one for me, at least. When you've got the California Golden Bears. You know what I've said about those 2 UC schools and their rich endowments, and where you question their commitment to athletics as they don't have to because they truly do function as research one institutes that have all kinds of dollars. I think it's interesting to see that Cal's boasting that they have been able to secure $90 million, which compared to what the big boys can do, it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. But I think in the ACC, especially it being Cal, that is pretty substantial. And it being California, yes, it is the Bay Area, but it's still interesting, given that there is still a sense that these folks do put the academic side on a high priority. So to see that they're getting their donors to open up the checkbook and they're able to get some of those ducats, you go, Golden Bears. This was another interesting story that came out this past week. School that I'm very familiar with because I did my master's there, the University of Nevada at Las Vegas. Formerly known as the Running Rebels, but you can't call them that at this point. The program they got now, far cry from what was going on when Tark the Shark and all those bad boys were making everybody feel cool when they watched them. Their coach, Josh Pastner, he created a stir, basically saying, look, I'm looking to sell the program for $10 million. I want a sugar daddy. Of course, it was taken the wrong way, and he had to walk it back and explain. And I'm like, Josh, we get it. You're not trying to sell the program. Like I said, you want a sugar daddy. You want somebody to just say, yeah, okay. I got deep pockets. I want to see this program get back to its glory days. And I've said on this platform many times why that is going to be hard because you do have the Golden Knights who won a Stanley Cup, the Raiders who maybe they will be good at some point, and then you have the A's coming. The landscape is far different than it was back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But maybe that's why the folks at UNLV are finally trying to say, look, we need somebody to come in here and say, oh, you love the Rebels, or yeah, you want to be that guy that's the the man behind the curtain. So we'll be curious to see how that goes. Another interesting thing here as I keep an eye on the smaller schools that are trying to survive in this ecosystem. Sonoma State, up there in that country where a friend of the show, our NFL contributor, Dave's Diggum Smacks Williams lives, they are restoring their athletic program. Now, not all the programs, but they're bringing it back. And I find that interesting because, even though it's a state school, you obviously do have some folks that donate to that school. And I'm guessing that's how this is going to happen. And I do believe you're going to see stuff like this. But it's going to be done in what I would say would be a very scalable and sane manner. So, yes, keep an eye on how schools that are coming back and schools that are going to be scaling back in the years to come. Because I guarantee they're trying to play in this ecosystem or this arms race ain't a walk in the park, sugar. All right, folks, we'll be back momentarily with some Mo. All right, then. A little quick nod to the scene. It's been a little bit since we've had new content there. Keep an eye out for some episodes. We're getting ready to drop some fun stuff there, I promise. Woo! Where are we going here? Okay, I think it's time for one of our favorite segments of the Foxtrotting and the Foxhole podcast. Something you should probably know. Or things that happened this past week in the world of sports you might want to know or possibly even care about. All right, what do we got going on here? Let's start with a little golf, shall we? Oh, wow. So I haven't had time to look deeper into this as far as like the live. Right. Once a I don't know, strapping, husky, athletic specimen, now all shriveled up on life support. Not the folks that got the big bag of cash that SJ gets down is always talking about. I mean, I think it's so bad they're possibly just gonna not even do the final event and just say blanket. We're folding our cards, and all the shenanigans that are going on with FIFA and another PE group, as we like to say. Mm. The crown jewel, as they call the finale. Yeah, what a crown jewel that'll be if it turns out to be not an a 3XL stainless steel of the stainless steel bowl of the smelly varieties that we give out in TMCA time that you get instead of the crown jewel when it comes to Liv's grand finale. See, the big boys are in Detroit. Man, I can't remember what was going on the last time since I don't have my phone. Oh well. I know that going a little away from golf, we know that Mr. I always get this wrong. Car. Yeah, that guy. He joins the elite club that we said was probably going to happen last week. And that what elite club is that? Winning the Tour de France. And when you join the ranks of the Hinaults and Merckx, Indurain, yeah, that's a pretty cool summit to be on as far as cycling is concerned. So props to him. Razor Grouse and Dom. What else do we have? Well, I told you about Noah Lyles and Sha'Carri Richardson to you. You're winning the 100 at the United States Track and Field National Championships. Of course, Lyles trying to be the badass and going for that He-Man's 100, 200 double. He comes up short. And this would have been his fifth 200-meter title had he been successful. So, still, I'm sure he'll come away feeling all right winning the 100 meters. Props to Sha'Carri. Great comeback for her, though, isn't it? Winning the 100 when everybody thought she was washed. She said, oh, wash? Watch this. So good for her. Okay, this is kind of disturbing and one of those I told you so and you shouldn't be surprised. So the UFL still trying to find traction as a spring league has announced that Houston and Birmingham are going to be abandoned as hubs or whatever the heck they call them, as member cities or something like that, with that weird structure they have in that league. And I thought, okay, Houston, you do have the Texans, the Rockets. But I'm like in Birmingham, what do you have? And obviously, in the fall, you've got the Crimson Tide. So what you're telling in that football crazed land, your product isn't really worth us coming out to see. I mean, Birmingham did not, Birmingham had a pretty good run in the original USFL, but this, people are just like, nah, man. It doesn't come as a surprise, like I said, but still, you have to wonder. Like I said, Houston, I get it. I mean, there are places I do think you could get this to work. Maybe someplace like Boise. I don't know. I would hate to see it compete with this USL team. But someplace like that. It's got a population where you could create a vibe. I think so. But in a place like Houston? Come on, man. Something else to keep an eye on. We're always making fun of the Paul brothers. But when it comes to movers and shakers and getting things done, and I don't know about raising the bar, but moving the needle. So Jake, his most valuable, promotions is merging with the PFL, which probably needs the visibility. And at a time when I think, anyhow, UFC is kind of waning in its popularity. I don't think that's a stretch to say that by any means. This is going to be interesting because that they brought Ronda Rousey out. I don't necessarily think that it moved the needle to that much degree as it could have, but I think it's interesting with some of the people that are in the PFL. And if Mr. Paul can continue his P.T. Barnum, personality and draw attention to the things that he does, well, who knows what could happen? Because the UFC, they ain't moving the needle. And that Dennis Hopper voice. Am I lying? Of course not. Of course, Connor. Even though we feel the Warner Brothers Kane should have yanked his boo boo from the stage after pissing out this last time in the octagon recently, he wants a last dance. Everybody wants a last dance, but he wants a shot at Max Holloway in 2027, kind of as his last dance. So good grief, we can get the 12-parter and watch you get your boo boo kicked again because you don't want to go in the octagon and be serious. Come on, Connor. But hey, if you're there, there'll be views. People will be watching it, and somehow it will move the needle because it's you. I always go on these rants about how we just have a constant need our species to be entertained. I just love that even in a world where things are oversaturated, and I'll have more to say about that in a closer look, that we still attend events in ridiculous numbers and we're always setting records. Case in point, the All Grass Championships, better known as Wimbledon, setting another record. I think this is what, 550,000, a little bit over that. I'm just like going, dang. So, once again, everything keeps going up, but our appetite and thirst for it seems to be right on par, following along, never getting left behind, and definitely never getting left out. And okay, the memorabilia madness continues to just astonish me. So there's this rare, I believe it's a gold leaf Otani card. And the guy that possessed it, I'm not sure how these things happen. I guess maybe you get lucky in the deck. I don't know. I have to maybe do my research. So my takes are as salty and cynical. But well, it went for $11 million. And I'm thinking once again, what are we doing? Somebody's paying $11 million. I know Shohei is an incredible talent, a once in a lifetime talent. But $11 million for a card. Once again, what are you going to do with it? Yeah, we're such an interesting species at time. Not protected species like angel reefs. We're just an interesting species. Here's one that I forgot from the last segment, but I just got to get it in because it is something you should probably know if you don't know. So, Simone Biles, and I'm not sure what's going on in terms of her health, or now that we're not in the Olympic cycle, she just is bored and needs some attention because NFL season's not for another 6 weeks or so, or well, 7 or 8 really, and she isn't going to get the camera on her until I was her. Is he for the Bears or the Packers? I think he's trading teams. They're part of the scenery, but you know what I'm saying in terms of her getting her. Hey, look at me! Because she comes up with some story that because she got invited to T Sizzle's wedding, and apparently she's accusing Avril Lavigne of stealing her YSL shades at Sizzle's wedding. You didn't have that on your 2026 scorecard now, did you? Okay, folks. We'll be back with some more mayhem momentarily. Oh my word. All right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chilling like a Vicha Karvachgelia on a saucy Saturday night. A little bit steamy with the lights in here, but whatevs. Really wanted to get this out earlier, but you know how things go when you're on summer hours. But at least, hopefully, I get this out, before Saturday night's over. So when you wake up tomorrow, it's there waiting for you to enjoy it with your breakfast burrito and your latte. Okay, let's hop on the hippie bus real quick before we talk baseball. Let's do a little dark star crashes, mirror shatters. Break out the patchouli, munch on the veggie burrito, get the ice cold Heineken for $2 in the lot. Happy birthday, Jerry. Good grief, what would that make it? What would that have been? This would have been 80, he'd be 84 today. Oh, crazy. He's been gone now for 31 years. And obviously, the days between now and obviously August 9th, all kinds of celebrations of Garcia throughout the week. You know, we'll have plenty to say once we have a chance to circle back and look at some content. So, yeah, but we definitely miss you, Jerry. Hope you're enjoying a chili dog with your chords, your guitar books, and all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's talk a little fish. They closed out a pretty amazing run at the Garden with their 90s theme, picking a year each night of the run. Definitely some crazy stuff. Need to definitely unpack. Well, I think it was the last night. We had like a 37-minute yim, and then there was like a 31-minute cross-eyed and painless. Played Fenway the last 2 nights. I haven't had a chance to unpack those yet. But based on everything else that's happened this summer, you know it's good. A lot of folks, even those who are cynical, are just like, yeah, this is pretty good. They're really taking it somewhere, and it's been a very fun time as far as the PH from Vermont is concerned. We're loving it. What else do we have? So you had to figure this was going to happen at some point. The folks at that other Apple, the curators of the Beatles, they announced this week that they're dropping the extended Rubber Soul. So I'm kind of curious as far as that goes. Revolver was okay, the extended of that. I'm kind of curious the further we go back. Especially if you can unearth some things in the archive that haven't been on the bootlegs for years and years that we're going to know about. Oh, okay, it's in slightly better quality. But yeah, I'll be curious to see what a extended Rubber Soul entails. Heck yeah! All right, folks. Dark Star does crash and the mirror shatters, even though we got our 8-track Hallelujah Hat track going with us. Let's talk some baseball. So I think this is interesting with the A's. And I don't know, did I mention on Aftershocks about Chan Ho Park, who used to play with the Dodgers? He's part of a Korean investment group. They're pouring $55 million into the A's. Cubans pouring money into the A's. Now, all you folks who were cynical about Fisher, as you should be, but like Mark Davis, getting other people involved, and all you folks that thought the stadium would never get off the ground. I don't know. I keep seeing those stadium cams, and the clamshell is rising from the valley floor, man. And I know that there are a lot of folks, and you live in Vegas, you're going to be bitter. Especially right now, where it's probably averaging 115, 116 degrees every day, as it tends to be in late July into most of August. So of course you don't want to see anything positive about this, but keep an eye on how Fisher secures his bottom line, make sure the stadium opens on time. If not, perhaps ahead of schedule. It is Vegas, where they tend to get things done and don't let the bureaucracy get in the way of a good thing. Okay. So obviously, this time of the year, we start to get to the trade deadlines. You're either having a fire sale or you're moving some chess pieces to see if you can make a deep run in the postseason. One of those teams that's not. It's like how the team that basically, this is kind of funny because the team that grew out of the Mets grew out of the ashes of the Giants and the Dodgers. And the Giants used to play at the Polo Grounds. And above the Polo Grounds was this hill, what do they call it? Coogan's Bluff, right? The miracle of Coogan's Bluff, Bobby Thompson in 1951 hitting the great home run off of Ralph Branca, the 3-game playoff. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Your baseball history. If you don't, learn your baseball history for things like that. But right, Coogan's Bluff. And I think maybe they should find a hill somewhere, if you can find one left, right, in the 5 boroughs. I suppose it should be in Queens, and call it Cohen's Folly. Right, with Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, he was doing a lot of interesting things in Queens. Making the Mets successful ain't one of them. And it's become Cohen's Folly, and they are selling off their assets. And luckily for him, the bags of cash are endless, so he can do a nuke and pave and basically say, okay, this last iteration wasn't successful by any stretch of the imagination. What can we do in the next iteration? Obviously, you've got the money. You just say, okay, we're just gonna blow this up and start from scratch. Sooner or later, I got enough money to get this right. We'll see. Daniel Snyder thought that, and it never happened. But I'm sure Mr. Cohen's got a little more going on than that idiot. So a big series going on at Dodger Stadium with the Red Sox in town. The Red Sox taking the first 2. Just made me think the whole with Ohtani and the Dodgers being kind of cautious, having him return to the mound. I just kind of wonder, are the Dodgers being too cautious, or are they playing it smart? They're probably playing it smart only because you wanted him to stay sharp as far as that goes. But they got such a lead. And no lead is safe, as speaking of the miracle of Coogan's Bluff heading into August. But I'm not sure the Padres and the D-backs, and we damn know the Giants ain't going to make a run as far as the Dodgers blowing this. Stranger things have happened, and so I guess it is smart, but at the same time, if you're the Dodgers, try to go for your 3rd championship, still want to keep everybody sharp, still want to keep them hungry, and have that eye of the tiger, and not think this is a stroll in the park. Because you assume you make an ass out of you and all the other Dodger fans, myself included. Okay, so who's cooking? Well, the Rays, after stumbling a little bit, what were they like? 8-2 in their last 10. Interesting is the Astros are 8-2 in their last 10, and they're only 500. But I think they're playing a big series right now with the Rangers. I know they won the first game. I don't know what happened today because I'm actually recording and not looking at any scores. Yeah. The Bean Eaters, they're hot. So winning last night and tonight, they're 10-2 in their last 12. Luckily for the Rays, and if you're the Yankees, as far as the wild card is concerned, those Bo Sox, they are coming, like I told you. Who's not hot? Well, I think that would be the Mariners. Very disappointing, as I said last week. The Marlins, who somehow are still hovering around 500, have been a stinky diaper as of late. The Pirates and the Cardinals too. I mean, they're all like 3-10, 3-7 in their last 10. All having a chance to be in the wild card, but you don't want to go into August being a stinky diaper, going 3-7 in your last 10, especially if that losing continues through the first half of August. Your fans won't be happy. And lastly, I don't know. I can't give this guy a TMCA award, even though I should, because I'm a scooter rider. I know things can happen. But what's up with the Giants and Harrison Bader? Got into a pretty bad scooter accident. Not bad in the point of like life threatening, but he's out. And the Giants have slapped back hard, basically suspending him without pay for like, hey, what are you being a dumbass and riding a scooter in season and getting hurt? We'll see what the players' union has to say about that. All right, folks. When we come back, we'll go pitch side and see what is going on there. Wow. Tell you, sometimes hitting the wrong buttons in the production studio, it happens. We're not perfect. We're striving for. That's what we say. We're always under construction over here. Yeah, boy. What do we got here? Let's go pitch side. I've been speaking about this with a lot of people. Obviously, the big story with Mr. Infantino and the PE trying to bring the big money bags to the World Cup. The federation's never going to concede that much power to anyone. Pushing back, I think it's still a smokescreen. So you can get the, we'll just say, green check mark when it comes to the '64 Cup World Cup, which would have happened anyway. I don't know. Everybody's got their opinion on this. And of course, the soccer peanut galleries, you listen to the people. And it's not about the people. They'll tell you that. Maybe I'm cynical, but I know better than that. In the same way that the ESL, the English Super League, hasn't died. They're just trying to figure out how to bring it to the table in a less odious manner. I feel this is going to happen. And these people who think Gianni, he's basically going to get ousted over this, maybe. I mean, his chummy relationship with Trump, that may play into it, but I don't think so. In that same way that, man, how many times did you all tell me Roger Goodell's goose was cooked? And I look now, 6 or 7 years later, that guy's looking more Teflon than ever. So we'll see. Maybe the federations say enough is enough, and they're more serious about the integrity as opposed to the amount of power they would possibly lose if in exchange for big bags of cash, the amount of influence a PE may have over the competition and the sport itself. Yeah. You know, the peanut galleries, which, I mean, it is the people's game, that's never going to go over well with them. But in the end, whatever happens and whatever they choose, you're going to watch. Otherwise, you'd have walked away from this a long time ago. Maybe harder to ingest, let alone digest, but you'll still be there. Um, kind of interesting. Speaking of FIFA, where this whole disciplinary thing with Argentina, at the World Cup, I mentioned it, bringing out the Islands of Malvinas banner, aka Falklands. Yeah, there's just some things in this world that just make you smile. Because they say if you know, you really know. I don't know if this is actually ink to paper, but it does seem like Pochettino will be around for the next World Cup window through 2030. And if that's the case, as I've said here before, I am so on board with that. Continuity, consistency, give the man another window. Man, who we gonna bring in if you let him walk? Makes no sense. Let's see if we can be patient and it bears fruit in 4 years. Speaking of domestic, you got MLS looking to up the ante in its next media rights deal, trying to get between 400 and 500 million. If that's true, I don't know if there's enough dollars out there with the NFL wanting them all. I don't think you do it on Apple. You do it on a platform that more people want to be on. I don't know how you convince Disney and their penny pinching ways or Fox to give you that kind of scratch, or maybe you can do a joint deal. You're gonna have to do something because the USL is gonna be they're nipping up the hills, and they're gonna have plenty of exposure in their move. Yeah, a lot going on with soccer. Can't wait to get the boys back. I'm gonna have to have a chat with him here soon. My Cascade Aces folks that were on Aftershocks. I'll have to talk about there. I think it's interesting. Speaking on global, you got Zidane. He enters the group chat, taking over France. Given the success he had at Real Madrid, going to be curious to see what happens there in the years to come. Diamande does go to Los Blancos. $153 million, I believe, or depending on who you believe. I don't know if that's a done deal, but it sure seems that way because everybody else is pivoting away. I don't know what's going on as far as Arsenal and Liverpool trying to get Bradley Barcola. Doesn't seem like Vinny Jr. is heading to Arsenal now. Don't you just love the transfer window where all the would-be sporting directors go through all this angst, create all this drama and all these false headlines. And then when the dust does settle, the things that actually do happen, it's like, wow, on paper this looks good. Or I can't believe we signed this wanker. Did you see him at Bournemouth? He couldn't. Wow. A lot going on in USL, speaking of Chicharito signing with Atletico Dallas, an expansion team. Oh, yeah, love the originality. Like Sporting Cascades. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love me some FCFC, but Atletico Dallas. Yeah, all right. Wow. MLS. Let's see here. Big matches tonight. Battle for top of the West with Vancouver and LAFC up in BC. Ends up a 1-1 draw. Man, LAFC fan, obviously, I got the gear on. All I can say about that is it was a double-edged sword. On the one hand, LAFC, who led at the half, ended up conceding a penalty that led to a draw. You feel like they should have won, but the way they were outplayed by Vancouver on the newly laid turf, because they put the artificial turf back in after taking the grass that was installed for the World Cup out. So they're still breaking the new turf in. But obviously kind of slowed folks down with both teams that definitely have high flying attacks. But good showcase. Didn't quite live up to what it was meant to be. Here I'm gonna have to grab my phone here and take a quick look at some other stuff. See what else happened. I think Messi ended up in a tie Yeah, they ended up at a tie. I'm trying to see what happened late. There's some interesting games here, so bear with me for a second. As I try to look at my phone here. I know, right? You don't have an assistant like all these other cool folks have. I know it's crazy that I was just looking at the last segment. It's so weird now that because the trade deadline used to be in like August, right? And now you have it's what? So Monday, what would that be? Today is the first, so it stretches to the third, kind of on a business day. Let me see here how this game turned out. So wow, Portland comes back late atop Seattle. Portland's been playing very good out of the break. Cincinnati beating San Jose. Lewandowski with a brace. Chicago getting a big win over Charlotte. It's in Miami and the Crew 2-2. Yeah, Nashville, top of the East, actually played to a 2-2 draw in DC at Audi Field. Yeah. Okay. Philadelphia beats Atlanta. Okay, lastly, we'll do a little NWSL as far as the power rankings go. And this is heading into this week. Washington Spirit 1, Gotham 2, Utah 3, which is kind of a surprise. San Diego Wave 4, Thorns 5. Interesting to see the Thorns as low as 5 at this point in the season. And what's up with Kansas City Current? Didn't I tell you they were going to have a hangover after getting out to that enormous lead and then wilting in the playoffs? All right, folks, we're cooking. When we come back, we will do some NBA beat. All right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Kid Harlan here. Ice cold chilling in episode 325. Now, gotta give the Timber some credit. All of our, speaking of the crew, I know a lot of them were up there, and the rest of them were down at level up here in Eugene. Good for them. Mixing things up has done wonders for that squad. Beating Seattle again, that's nothing to sneeze at. Okay, let's go to the NBA. The hardwood, the association. So this is an interesting one, which kind of puts a little egg on Commissioner Silver's face. Insiders say this whole thing with Kawhi Leonard probably won't get resolved until sometime next year. So what does that mean exactly? As far as the trade that you said really couldn't be, I don't know how this all works, but apparently the tough talk I guess didn't really go anywhere with that, and you still need more time to figure out whether this was up on the level, and if it wasn't, what are you going to really do about it? I'm asking. I'm asking for a friend. I don't know. I think I talked about this on Aftershocks. That was fun the other day. Like this is about Barkley saying that he does think it is possible for LeBron to win 2 more titles in Philadelphia. Back in the East and injuries playing a part, sure. But if everybody's healthy, That's a British petroleum chuck. It really is a British petroleum chuck. Sorry. That's what I'm saying, man. No. And Charles says it would make him the GOAT. And I think I said this the other day. I think it would make for some interesting conversation, especially given his age and what role he might play. I mean, I think I will reiterate that. Definitely. Definitely. Hell yeah. It's interesting that he did, the whole rounds. And I think it's funny about Pat Riley kind of saying, I ain't bitter with this guy anymore. Right? At some point, you just got to let it go. You look Riley becoming an elder statesman and kind of looking back at his great run. He wants one more. But yeah, I think he doesn't want to. I think he doesn't want people, when they look back at all he's done for basketball, to have, yeah, but he left on a bitter note with LeBron. So, from a political standpoint, maybe a point of sincerity, I like this one. I mentioned the other day about Draymond getting the big bag. Still don't know why that makes any sense. The whole Stephen A. Smith apologizing to Kyrie and everybody else. Very mealy mouth. Definitely makes you wonder about, gee, are you really trying to make a political run? And since the tide has turned as far as what people feel about the jab, my goodness, has it not been an interesting 6 years when we went from vilifying Kyrie to him being a sympathetic figure? I mean, we thought Kyrie was batshit crazy as Kanye, right? Crazy 6 years, y'all. Crazy 6 years. Wow. Okay. Let's talk a little Queens of the Court. Boy, there's a lot to go on here. Let me tell you, man. Sophie. Caitlin. Why don't we get spin? Kathy Engelbert, Stephanie White. The league that can't get out of its way. I mean, I went at length on Aftershock, so I don't want to go too deep here. People got a big win again last night. They were in Portland. More stuff to unpack there as far as the rally for Sophie standing up for biological women, and predictably in places like Seattle, Portland, and Minneapolis next, there's going to be some resistance. So you can guarantee I'll probably get a chance to unpack a lot of that in the next Aftershocks. Yeah, the other side of the equation, the old heads, and hey, I'm the one building this league. Forget about the straight, attractive white girls y'all are into. What about us? They getting angrier. And as I say every week, can you blame them? But I think everybody is seeing what I've been saying all along. And I've tried to give this league and these ladies a chance. But they continue, and I mean continue, to be the most insufferable group of individuals within a league in all of sports. I don't even think there's anybody that's even on the same lap. Might even be 2 laps down. That's how far ahead they are. Or as Jimmy Soprano said, so people are so far behind, they think they're leading the race. That's the W. Wow, there's so much going on here, right? There's Kathy Engelbert. Ugh. Everybody now. She's a commissioner I can see that people have had enough of. I'll be surprised if when the season commences. I don't think she's there. I think this whole thing with the Storm owner, Celeste Keaton, I said that the other day. I think that's all a plant. This whole weird thing with Monica McKnight and the Jamel Hills and the Carrie Champions, all getting their clicks and narratives, right? Making sure the Aja Wilsons and Olivia's and all those folks getting their flowers, and obviously Angel. And speaking of Angel, oh gosh, hence I forget. The whole joke with her and Paige placing the bet, and a lot of people really not happy with the W not at least suspending him, or as Linda Cohn said, Pete Rose would be rolling over at his grave. I don't know what to make of this because I already just said it's an insufferable league, and it's really a league that, unless you're a simp and you've got lots of content and people like Ben Daniel, Keep the Vision, Angry Fan Sports, Rachel Demita, you guys are monetizing it. So I get where you're coming from, and you could be delusional about it, but everybody else that's on a level ground not monetizing their content on it, it's a league you can't take serious. And even those people say it half the time. Because it's a league that is good at one thing, and that's shooting itself in the foot. All right, folks. When we come back, we'll do a closer look as we continue to get closer and closer to the finish line. Episode 325. See you momentarily. All right. People blowing up my phone and all kinds of weird whack ball stuff. Yeah. Last night, good friend telling me some X Files kind of stuff, and now I'm gonna get some Peyton Place kind of stuff when I get off the phone. Hey, this is what friends are for, right? All right, we're at that point in the Foxhole where we get to opinionate, editorialize, talk a little trash. Closer look coming at you. Now, I saw an interesting thing on the sports shows this week. I think this was several of the shows, but Fearless being one of them, with Whitlock and his band of rebelles who were marshaling in the Sierra Maestre in the fall of 1958, getting ready to do the March on Havana when it comes to sports content. And they were talking about the oversaturation of sports when this comes to streaming and just all the content that's accessible. And I thought, yeah, that we know that. But I think we know it, and we haven't really given much thought about it. We just sort of take it for granted. And a lot of that always will go back to the pandemic. But I think this goes even before the pandemic. But I think the pandemic put a different spin and provided perspective because sports was taken away from us. But you do get that sense in recent years. We can use the bowl games as a prime example that you don't really get a what until we get to around my birthday, the 29th, and the games actually take resonance. I obviously, with the CFP games on a whole nother plateau. We're just talking the bowl games. I think a lot of the regular season and a lot of this stuff, I know I always complain about the lack of Sunday afternoon games, but then again I go, wow, if it wasn't for the red zone, would you be paying attention to it? Well, me being a junkie, before the red zone, okay. So we got a terrible 49ers Cardinals game. Okay, I guess I'll watch. But But you do think that like college basketball, the NBA, the NHL, the MLS, NWSL, all the global soccer leagues, auto racing. I, it's like it's wonderful to have all these options on the table, but I do agree with some of the things I heard this week about an oversaturation, and in the end, there's so much of it. It's actually choking the ecosphere, especially with the valuations and the amount of resources it takes to follow this stuff, whether it's being in person or all the different streaming platforms that you need to consume it. We are entering this weird space. And you do wonder sometimes if oversaturation, in that, drawing an analogy of how we're slowly killing the planet. We're rapid, or I shouldn't say slowly, because now we're kind of rapidly killing the planet in a lot of ways. And I feel this oversaturation is doing the same thing to the sports ecosphere. They're obviously hand in hand, because I think one's feeding the other as far as making the comparison between the two. But yeah, I just think it is pretty nutty where we are right now in 2026. I'd never say that, but I have, just felt that for years when I sit there and think, when you're not watching a marquee matchup, and I sit there and think that all the time, like when obviously being a big PSG fan, and yeah, I get all this PSG, even when they play in their Farmers League matches, yeah, it's usually must see TV. But am I gonna be watching Montpellier and Troy, or Troyes, if you ever really pronounce that? No, I'm not. But if I want to consume it, I can. In the same way that I'm probably not going to consume a lot of. What was the matchup today? What was, I think, the Twins and the Mariners that was on? Or maybe I was watching the big inning on MLB Network, and I was sitting there just thinking of this whole oversaturation conversation. And that's not saying it's a bad thing, but I just think at some point, when do we flatline? With especially the way we're nickel and dime to get all this content, and there's so much of it. It's like at some point, when do we get burned out? And maybe many people probably already feel that way, and we'll never know because they're always kicking the books as far as who's watching. All right, let me get back to LeBron, which will be an ongoing conversation for the rest of the summer. And I brought up the whole thing about how the GOAT discussion has evolved. But let me just get back to LeBron and just ask a serious question. Should LeBron get a pass for all he's done? And he's done a lot. Or should he be flamed endlessly for sort of kind of setting this whole thing up to copy Jordan and have his version of the last dance? Boy, I had to give this one some thought. Because I don't want to sound wishy-washy, because I do feel I think I agree with, I think was it Steve Kim, the Korean Cosell, who basically said, look, man, or maybe it was Maurice of Keep the Vision. The guy's had an exemplary career. He hasn't been a douchebag, even though some of you all think he has done the PED. But until he ever gets caught, that's just great internet talk. Ain't no truth to it. That's just yo truth. Never got in trouble. Doesn't have 80 million baby mamas. Sure, he's a little full of himself and talks in the third person. But he's got championships, and you can't write the NBA's overall story without a lengthy chapter about him. So maybe we do give him a pass. But my goodness, him and the Minister of Information, Rich Paul, they make it really hard to sign off on that pass. I know I sound like a broken record here, but it just fascinates me week to week where you have to sort of ask this question. Take the bronzexuals and the straight up haters when it comes to him out of the equation and just have a truthful conversation about, right? We just give him a pass for the things that really annoy us. And as great as great as he has been, he does do a lot of things that are very annoying. And I know I had to just shut my mouth for the last 8 years because once he put the purple and gold on, well, I'm not going to criticize him. But now that he's in the city of brotherly love, hey, I'm with Skip Bayless and everybody else. It's open season on you, King. But I know it's coming from me. I'm gonna say, I'm not gonna be on the fence and be mealy mouth. I think, yeah, he's done enough to get a pass. We may have to put the clothespin on our nose as far as how odious it's gonna be, because knowing him, this he does have a media company that ends up being a 38 part opus. But I forget who it was who said it on one of these shows that I saw on the web this week. It has the potential to be a very interesting story, given the trajectory going back from him coming into high school to wherever this ends in Philadelphia. So, yeah. All right. Bronny. Yeah, because we don't even know what's going to happen with Bronny, let alone Bryce. All right, folks. We're still cooking. When we come back, we'll wind it down with the NFL report and some TMCA time. See you in a moment. All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your favorite host, Ken Harlan here. Foxtrotting in the Foxhole, season 11, episode 5, I believe. Number 325 overall. Always a pleasure. As we get closer to the football season, we're getting towards it, and we'll see what happens as far as how the weather cooperates on certain days. But we're going to try to really nail down the Tuesday, Friday schedule. Aftershocks on Tuesday. Foxtrotting on Foxhole come out Friday evenings. And we're going to try to do the scene at least 2 or 3 times a month moving in the fall. We're still obviously working on some production aspects and some organizational aspects of FTI and FX Media. So stay tuned for that. I know it's a little wonky as far as what you've been seeing and getting, but it's going to pay off once we get this stuff under control. And of course, we added more mayhem because that's what we do. By guarantee, this latest edition, yeah, things are going to start popping once I can figure that out and incorporate it into everything else that we've brought into this ecosphere over the last 4 or 5 months. Really the past year or so since we started the video with Aftershocks and then coming to start doing Foxtrotting and the Foxhole video episodes along with the audio episodes that we've been putting out for the last 6 years. So it's been fun, but it's rocky to get to a point where we too legit to quit. All right, let's get cracking with the NFL report. Yeah, this is a somber one, and this is another intriguing story where you just wonder when it comes to conversations with CTE when people die. Or, like I brought up last week with CJ, Chris Johnson, and Michael Strahan, and people really taking Michael Strahan to task. Well, this happens again this week. So, if you remember the Chargers and Arkansas before that, they had a great player, linebacker, Billy Ray Smith. He passed away this week. I think he was, I forget how old he was. But his people said that he definitely will be a CTE case, when they do the examination, obviously, after post-mortem and all that kind of stuff. They donate the brain to that center at, I think it's Boston University. And of course, folks, those folks, taking folks to task for is a family, a money grab, and why didn't people know about this sooner? And or if folks are like, see, this is one more reason. And I love it. Well, I don't love it because you don't. This is a very tragic thing, and who knows where this is going to lead? Because with you got people asking, hey, is there a link to somebody getting ALS? I forget what the stuff that people were saying about Billy Ray Smith. It sucks, because I know you're trying to mourn them, but at the same time, you've got this whole CTE thing pretty much hanging over anytime somebody dies, especially if they're had Parkinson's, dementia, and these sort of things. And obviously, there has to be a lot more research to be done in terms of the long-term effects and what that may lead to. But of course, it's never going to be helped when people jump to conclusions, and we know people are absolutely in the penthouse when it comes to jumping to conclusions, when it comes to the peanut galleries. But our condolences go to Billy Ray's family and the Charger Nation. And he's a great player and obviously a great media personality in the San Diego media world after he was done playing. Okay, what do we got here? A lot going on in Tampa this week. For starters, Vita Vea, he wants out. He's got like a year on his contract. I've been saying a lot about Tampa, right? In terms of the Discord. And I mentioned the other day on Aftershocks about the documentary that's on Prime about them. Heck, this is going to be a whole other chapter because you got Vita Vea wanting out, and then you got Baker basically, walking up to the introductory press conference, lifting up his leg and peeing like a dog, and then doing the doo-doo on the carpet, talking about how his contract negotiations went because he's showing up without a contract and broke off any talks for an extension for now, basically betting on himself. I don't know. I think I was watching First Things First. I was. And was it Mangini, Coach Manginius, who kind of broke out his record over the last 3 or 4 years? And I'm just like, wow, Baker, you're selling some whoop tickets for what's basically been mediocrity and calling out the organization. I don't know if it was Coach Manginius, or maybe it was then the other cat, Willie Rolfe, I think it is, came out and said, you didn't get paid because maybe the Bucks aren't paying you because maybe you ain't elite. Maybe you aren't a top-notch quarterback. And looking at those numbers over the last couple of years, the proof's always in the details. Not a good look, but hey, bet on yourself, Baker. You bet on yourself. You might go somewhere else, and you could be the next Sam Darnold. Because it didn't happen in Tampa. Okay. People's disrespecting. Like I said, you feel disrespected, so you go in front of the organization, and act like a dog, and pee and poo all over the rug. Got it. Then we've got Deebo Samuel. That Debo Samuel. After a year in the nation's capital playing with my Commanders, he returns to the Barbary Coast. Stay safe. That's a crazy organization right now. Good for Debo. Good landing spot. Can't see anything bad. You just happen to come to the Commanders doing a really stinky diaper kind of year. Good news for the Colts fans and good news for Danny Dimes. Daniel Jones has been cleared to resume football activity, so he's going to be good to go as far as week 1 is concerned. Good there. I guess this has kind of caught me by surprise. Right? The Swiss Army knife of the New Orleans Saints, that Taysom Hill. Yeah, that Taysom Hill. He's parting ways with the Saints. Not sure I don't think he's walking away from the game, but he's just like saying, yeah, I think I've had enough of stinky diaper seasons in the Big Easy. Somebody who's not complaining, though, as far as the Big Easy is concerned, Michael Olave. He just got paid. Paid big time. $132 million deal with $90 million guaranteed. I think Mr. Olave is feeling quite all right. Okay. I know I'm going to get blamed for this, for those of you watching, but I don't care. I mean, you know what I said last week about the Dumber and Dumber comment, putting Shedeur and Ben Crump on the same stage. But I swear, every time I hear this guy, for somebody who grew up, in a privileged world, you barely sound literate. It's embarrassing. The more he speaks, the more he does not sound that bright for somebody that's grew up the way that he did. I know it's all the culture, and who are you to say that? But come on. Especially a space cadet like me, even I've got somewhat of a command of the English language. You can't tell me Shedeur does. Listening to him. You should put him and Ben Crump could go on tour and you yeah. I know, flame away, folks. I said it. The more he speaks, the dumber he sounds. In my Dennis Hopper voice. Am I lying? Speaking of my Commanders, kind of showing that they've got a zero tolerance policy. They fire their tight ends coach, Ben Still, after his recent DUI arrest. Basically like saying, oh no, man, we ain't putting up with this. Like one of our favorite fans, Mr. Ken of the Foxhole, says, is called Uber, called ride service. You're too dumb to do that. Why should you keep your job as our tight ends coach? I said, damn, Commanders. The atomic elbow coming out from the bad behavior narrative. Why put your livelihood in danger? I always say, if you don't have to, and you have the resources to be able to do that, put your family, yourself in shape. I never understand that. Okay. Well, we're getting closer to the regular season, so that means we get to break out our crystal balls. The crystal ball 1. Let's go to, since I made the Peyton's Place reference a minute ago, let's go with the Broncos. I don't think I've looked at their crystal ball yet. Let's look into them. A lot of people think it could be their turn, and it almost was. Obviously Bo Nix getting hurt at an inopportune time last year, so we'll really never know. I think he might have been able to get past the Patriots and Drake May. But since he got hurt, we'll never know. And you gotta wonder in the way things work. I mean, I'm not gonna bet against Sean Payton because he's done it before. And he took a Bronco team that for the longest time was kind of a stinky diaper. And now, it looks like they may be the top dog in the AFC West. Boy, my crystal ball is kind of really murky here on this one. And so, I'm going to say this. I do think they're going to be a playoff team again this year, but I don't know if they take that next step, getting closer to the Lombardi. I think just because they're good, I don't trust the Chargers, and I'm not sure if the clock hasn't struck 12 on Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Mr. Sizzle. But so, yeah, I can see 10-7, 11-6. I can totally see that, but I'm not seeing them get beyond what they were last year. That's what my crystal ball says. Another team, and I think in their same tier, crystal ball number 2, Goldilocks, my man T Law, Liam Cohen and company, Travis Hunter, Mr. Etienne, and blah blah blah. Jaguars, what is it? Duval, Jacksonville Jaguars. My crystal ball is a little bit clearer on this one. This is where, yeah, they had 13 wins last year after kind of underachieving. I think they take a couple of steps back, but since they are in a chicken and dumplings conference, where depending on how healthy Danny Dimes stays, and by earlier prediction about the Texans regressing, I can see around 10 to 12 wins for them. Maybe. That's if they stay healthy and things go right. But I don't think that's going to be the case. This is realistically more around a 7 to 9 win team. We'll see how things break, especially in that weird division. You never know. It could be a year where 9 wins could get it done if they beat up on each other, or somebody could have, one of those weird years like Indianapolis was on their way to having before Danny got injured and the brakes came off of the Colts' Express and the bandwagon really careened off the hill. Okay, that's my crystal balls right now. And, when I was talking about, when I think about the Jaguars and the Broncos, obviously the Chargers are in that slot below that, right? I want to get to where you talk about me in that way. But instead, we're talking about Justin Herbert, our local hero here, and his engagement to Madison Beer. And he gets to show up to camp wearing a ring, and Jim Harbaugh saying he has a different look and a certain confidence about it. Well, hey, if getting engaged gets you a playoff win, more power to you. But let me tell you, if it doesn't, the peanut gallery is certainly ready for you because a lot of people in the media, in the peanut galleries, they've sharpened their knives and axes for you, Mr. Herbert. So you enjoy that bliss. But it's showtime as far as you're concerned when it comes to the 2026 season. Winning time, more like. All right. Let's see here. We are at that point of the show where, in the final lap, we get to examine the stainless steel bowls that come from the foundry. And these stainless steel bowls contain the smelliest varieties. As we always say, consult the wire, the Tommy Carcati era, to know what I'm talking about. And yes, indeed, folks, it is TMCA time in the Foxhole, where we give away stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties that come in complimentary, regular, and XL sizes. What do we give those bowls out for? For those whose actions during the week earn that distinction, or as we like to say, them being who they be. TMCA time in the Foxhole. Where are we going? Well, okay. This is going to be an interesting one because I think there's too many to give out. Given on what happened last week at the All-Star game, all the drama that's happened this week, all the stereotypes that this league is living up to. How about we just give everybody in the WNBA, we had to have the foundry work really hard this week. Everybody in the WNBA gets one, and we're going to give the rare 10 strip, 10 XLs for the Hall of Shame. For this just being a clown show and creating way too much unnecessary drama away from the court to the point where do we even know what's going on? Do we know that the Indiana Fever are on this hot run of scoring 100 points in what, 5, 6 straight games? Caitlin Clark's balling out. But none of that's moving the needle because we're talking about all of this mumbo jumbo bull jive away from it. I mean, obviously the trans roar is a real thing, but why every time somebody has to go to the podium when they want to talk basketball, you knuckleheads are asking about that? Okay, I shouldn't be this harsh, but I gotta give an XL to Ty Lawson, the former NBAer. A little hard times, you know. I don't want to, because we've all been on hard times. Well, maybe not everybody, but a lot of us have. So I have empathy. But come on, yo, you got bracelet and trying to steal a $33 bottle of Tito's vodka. Man, couldn't have the homies hit you. Oh wait, you probably have. You exhausted your credit with the homies, and they ain't giving you jack for a bottle of Tito's vodka. But dang. But yeah, we'll just give you an XL for that. It's like, don't need to be making headlines that way. Okay, this is another one. I've got to give 5 XLs for the Hall of Shame. I'm just going to say complimentary all around we're not going to call them baiters and hustlers. We're going to talk about the race wackos who are threatening anybody who doesn't agree with their message. Now, I know this is a bunch of keyboard warrior nonsense, and that's content before everything. But people are fragile. You can't be threatening folks that don't agree with their message or don't go along with your needing to find the racial boogeyman about everything. FOH when it comes to that nonsense. My. Yeah, that's definitely a WTF. I forgot. This is backdated. I gotta give an XL to Jasmine Crockett. That Jasmine Crockett with her racist rant during the World Cup. I mean, I didn't hear about it at the time, but I found out about it afterwards. And it's just like, stick to what you know, what I appear other than race hustling and trying to be a TikTok star on Congress who's soon to be out of a job. I'm not sure what you really know. But don't comment on stuff like the World Cup. Not helping us think that you do have a high IQ. Man, okay. I'm going to just give this a regular, even though it should be more. I should have the graphic up here, but I'm going to give this clown, this is locally. He is selling this LeBron jersey on Facebook Marketplace. It's some knockoff jersey, but I'm telling you, maybe I'll make a point to clip it for next week. This is one of the hideous Laker jerseys you will ever find anywhere. And I'm like going, so you want $30 for that? Man, you should pay somebody $30 and make them a bowl of soup so they'll take it off your hands. I mean, LeBron should come to, I think the guy was from Coburg or something like that. He should make a special trip just to give you a bee slap for how bad this jersey is. I'm telling you, it's about as hideous as you can ever think. Okay. And I gotta give, 2 XLs to Cat from Modest Mouse, Jared Leto. We'll make it 3 XLs. And any of you other folks who happen to be rich, or not rich, but popular because you're either an athlete, musician, or some kind of performer, and you can't stay away from the jailbait. All the booty out there, whatever your preference is, and you're going to throw it away because you can't stay away from the youngins. Right, like Shady McCoy has no sympathy for Ryan Clark and his race baiting and crying and attention grabbing. I got no empathy, no compassion for you fools when there's plenty of ways to get your freak on without you having to flush your livelihood and possibly spend time in the Gray Bar Hilton. All right, folks, we have reached the finish line for episode 325. As always, we thank you for tuning in every week. Tell your friends about the shows that are in the FTI and FX Media ecosphere. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Or like if you consume this on Spotify. Is where we originated with all this platform. All that stuff. Stay safe. Stay sane. Always avoid the bracelets because nobody's got time for that bull jive. Enjoy good food, drinks, company with the people that matter. Yeah. And in the meantime, we'll probably see you in a couple of days. I'm not sure if it'll be this week where we really start to drill down and being consistent as far as getting content out on Tuesdays and Fridays. Way things are going, it's summer, so things kind of play as they play. All right, until then, keep it real, keep it tight, keep it clean. We'll see you when we see ya.